Thank you. Okay. All right, ladies. Welcome back. I'm happy that we're doing this. Actually, it's funny because I've had a very challenging bitachon. I've been having experiences that really test my bitachon. So here we are. Here we are. Definitely had been having a lot of experiences lately that it's like, oh, this definitely puts to the test. So we're gonna start again. With the Gate of Trust, which Connie, did you do the whole book with us? And then, oh, look, Connie, you're ready. Awesome.
I think you sent it out on one of the last things I did last year. So I had it, or a couple of years ago. So I had it. So thank you.
Whoa, that's so cool. Okay, you're ready. And Tavia has done it, and we are all well equipped. So I'm going to try something a little bit different, but I'm also want to give a little bit of a background introduction for all of us, again, to review, and also for anybody who's going to be watching the recording. Oh, Aggie's here. Let me just pause. No. Oh, no. She doesn't have the Zoom. Let me pause the record. Hey, Aggie, let me just pause the record. As you all know from before, this actually is one of a few books in one whole book, I guess, or what do you call it? Like compilation of books called the Chovos Alevavos, the Duties of the Heart. And one of the gates in that book, one of the books within that book, I guess one of the sections is called the Gate of Trust. There's different gates. This is the Gate of Trust, meaning I guess it's how we enter trust, right? And it's really a book that is 1,000 years old. We're going back to Spain. This was originally written in Arabic, in the Judo-Arabic that the Jews at the time used to speak, and then it was translated into Hebrew. And it really was the first time that the concept of trust was structured for people, was given in a clear, structured way. It's not that the concept of trust didn't exist. It's obviously from the Torah. And there's obviously tons of Talmud on this, okay? But Rabbeinu Bachya in this book, the Chovos Alevavos, specifically in his Shar HaBitachon, in his Gate of Trust, made a very logical, practical explanation of the concept of trust and how we apply it and how we might come to be thinking about it erroneously, that appealed to the regular person, in the Jewish world. You didn't have to be super learned. In fact, that's what it was written in Arabic, which was just the language of the people. It wasn't, not the language of the Torah scholar, right? And it's so down to earth in a sense, or it's so that's not the word. It's timeless. My point is that it's timeless because as we go in it, we see that the arguments that he's making and the logic that he's taking us through and the myths, sort of speak, that he's debunking are things that we today in our modern day life struggle with or assume or think. So it's completely timeless because it literally just chronicled what bitachon is and how we apply it. So that is so let's explain now what is, or how can we define bitachon? What is trust? So we know there's a concept of belief, of faith, right? Emunah, as we say in Hebrew. And then there's this idea of trust. And I feel really bad that Sherry is not in. I don't know if she's able to come in. And then there's this idea of trust. So I like to describe it in two, and sometimes these two terms get they get used interchangeably, and sometimes we see, oh, the link is not working. The link is working. Sorry, guys. Let's go back to the recording and let's talk about this difference. Let's review it, because as I said, these terms get used interchangeably and they're actually not the same. They're pretty similar, but they're not the same. The way the Ramban Nachmanides explains it is think of, and we just had Tu B'Shvat, we just had the New Year of the trees. So if you have a tree, right? A tree brings fruit. It gives fruit, right? You can't have fruit without the tree, right? But you can have a tree and no fruit. So faith, believe that there is a creator of the world, right? Who enlivens us constantly, continuously, enlivens the entire all of creation, right? There's a creator, we believe in it, right? This is not a random place. It's not a creator who came and created the world and then disappeared. No, he's constantly enabling creation, right? And this is not a bing bang. What do you call it? Bing bang? What do you call it? What do you call it? The stars didn't collide and then this happened. No, there's actually a master, a director, an artist, right? So we have a belief in that. That's our tree. Now you could have the tree and you don't necessarily have to have the fruit. The fruit, according to the Ramban Nachmanides, is trust, is bitachon. It's that when not only that I believe, but that I completely rely, that I completely surrender. Because you could actually go through life, right? Knowing that there's a creator, believing that there's a creator. Yeah, of course, my life is not random. Of course. Oh, thank God for this. Thank God for like, really, we could have such an awareness, right? And that is the level, right? And by the way, every Jew has that. We are maminim b'nei maminim. We are believers, children of believers, right? Genetically, we have a spiritual DNA that by nature is a believer. We are connected. We are the children of Abraham Avinu, right? Who realize there is a creator. That's our spiritual DNA. So we are inherent believers. Now, unfortunately, because the world, or not unfortunately, by design, God created the world that he conceals himself, right? In order so that this creation could exist and not be overwhelmed by the presence of God. There's like these layers of concealment until we get to this world that we're in right here, which is called the world of action, the world of Asiya, where we exist. There are other worlds that are higher worlds where the revelation is not, the concealment is not as thick. There's a lot more revelation, right? But we're in this world where everything could go and function and operate. And Bacha was calling me and could function and operate. And we don't even have to recognize God if we don't want to, right? We know people like that. We know people who go through life and they don't even recognize that life is miraculous, that there is a creator that's orchestrating everything for us, that we have talents that we were given so specifically and specific children and specific circumstances, right? All the things that we say, wow, thank you, God, right? We recognize. You could go through life though and think it's all coincidence. Oh, what a nice thing. Oh, great. Oh, I achieved this. Oh, it's right. Like we don't have to have this awareness. Thank God we do, but we don't have to. Even if we believe in God, we don't have to continuously not only have the awareness, but have even a higher level of sophistication in the relationship where we rely on that creator, right? That is the fruit. That is the trust. That is the bitachon, right? So the Talmud talks about the classic example that Talmud gives is a thief who goes and he's going to do a burglary, to rob a home, right? And he's all ready to rob the home and he's entering the home. And what does he do? He elevates his eyes to heaven and he prays and he says, please, God, help me succeed. And that is the classic example to explain how emunah, faith, takes us to a certain level, but it's disconnected. It's not internalized, right? It's not exemplified in bitachon, that level of reliance, of surrender, because if a person, obviously he believes in the creator, because before he goes to rob, he asks God to help him, right? So he acknowledges there is a superior force that can help him, but he obviously doesn't trust, because if he trusted, he wouldn't have to rob. He would know that he would get his sustenance, his livelihood, without having to go against the will of his creator, right? Without having to do something that is not what the creator of the world wants, right? The creator of the world doesn't want us to rob other people, right? So that is the classic example. So again, we try to remember, okay, so the tree, we can have faith, but we don't have to have the fruit. Now the fruit, bitachon, can't exist without the tree. Meaning I can't rely if I don't first believe, right? I can't rely on my creator. I can't surrender to my creator and accept his will and trust that his will is the right thing and trust that he's constantly taking care of me if I don't believe in it first, in this entity who takes care of me, right? Make sense? We can't rely on something that we don't think exists, that we don't know about, right? So another good example that I always like to give is, imagine you are going to go see a tightrope walker, right? And you're up there in this building in Manhattan and it's super high and the guy is about to do his stunt and you're in this balcony or this window and you are cheering him on. The tightrope walker is about to go on and you are like, you're awesome. You're amazing. This is going to be great. That's one person. Then there's another person who doesn't just cheer the tightrope walker. He actually goes on top of the tightrope walker and on his back, he goes on the rope. That's trust. So the guy who's cheering him on has a lot of faith in him, right? He has a lot of faith that this tightrope walker is going to do great. He's going to be phenomenal. But the guy who goes on the tightrope walker, on the rope, right? That's the guy who really, really trusts. That's the guy who's like, okay, you got me. I know you got me. We're doing this. Together we're doing this, right? Right? That's bitachon, right? And obviously, it's a pretty challenging thing because of the circumstances that I just described, that God is concealed, right? So it makes it pretty challenging, even if on a cognitive level, like the thief, I know there's a God in the world, right? When things are going in a way that don't feel right to me, right? Because God is concealed and I can't see how this is good. It's all concealed good, right? We might experience, I was telling Connie at the beginning of the class and Tavia, this was one of those weeks that I was like, my bitachon was so challenged, right? It's hard for us to trust. And therefore, we have texts like this text and others that we learn and we practice and we review and we try to come back to the knowledge so that cognitively we can use your brain to take us to an emotional state of reliance, which really means of tranquility. So when our emotions are getting all stressed and out of whack because we feel like our circumstances out of control and there's chaos and there can't be any solution or there can't be any good in this, we can use our brain to calm those emotions and take us to an emotional state that we call bitachon, that we call trust, right? So it takes cognitive work, it takes intellectual work, and that's why we learn the text. That's why we're learning the book, and that's why we share stories, like, right? I always tell you that, and that's why we talk about God, and that's why we share stories of divine intervention, right? To remind ourselves, oh, there is a master. Right there, he is here. And just like he was here now today in this very pleasant situation that I bumped into this person, and it can't be just coincidence, right? When I'm in an unpleasant situation, I can draw from that. I say to myself, wait, he must be here with me too, right? There must be something. He's holding me, right? And I feel that. I can feel the comfort. And the truth is that this book over millennia has helped people through tremendous amount of difficult situations, giving them the guidance, giving them comfort, right? Giving them solace. So with that, before we go in, I actually wanted to share a few sections here that I hadn't shared in other previous iterations of this class. One of them about the challenge of bitachon, which resonated with me probably because I experienced this week, and I was talking to Alexia last night about this. And so it says here in this foreword that that genuine trust is actually a product of effort. It takes effort. Sometimes it's a lifetime of effort. And like we've said many times in this class, there are levels of trust. And some days we're at a level 6, and some days we're at a level 3, right? And some days we're even at a level 7, right? Hooray, hooray, right? But it is we are humans, right? And we strive. And when it's very funny because so this week we experienced something very painful that I know you probably all know, but we were saying this class for several weeks already for the refuah shlema of Henia Fetterman, Henia Rivka Bas Bracha de Voralea, although now would be a different name, but I don't actually know it. So unfortunately, we lost her yesterday. And it was like one of these blows, like it was like, are you kidding me? Like, like I all of a sudden I questioned everything, right? Because I was telling somebody, I was saying like, I'm the type of person, right? I tell my students, I tell myself, like, we have to trust. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe told us we have to trust, and we're going to see manifest good, and it's going to be open, and it's going to be visible. We're going to see it. But I also get why some people don't even want to go there. Remember, I've told you before that there's this defense mechanism that we use where it's like, no, I don't want to trust, because like, let's just leave that thing aside, because if I'm in this place where I'm a skeptic, right? And the situation is dire, and I just stay with that reality, then if the reality actually ends up not being good in an open, revealed way, then I knew it all along, right? I was ready, right? Right? Whereas we are like, no, it's good. It's going to be good. I'm going to see that it's going to be good, right? And then, of course, if it's not, it hurts. It hurts for everybody. But there's that sting. And it's like I was struggling with that, right? But I quickly had a conversation with a friend about this who helped me, again, kind of like we have to help each other through these challenges, who helped me see, but we were in the race. Right? At least we were doing something. When we work on trust, when we actually surrender to God and we believe, right? What are we doing? We're literally inviting that reality to happen. Not only that, but we're actively working for it to happen, because I trust. I teach the class and I talk about it and I go do mitzvahs and I tell people to do more mitzvahs, right? We're actively doing something. Whereas the alternative, the passive alternative, where I'm like, oh, it's really bad, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad, right? It's actually not doing anything. So at the end of the day, not only are we better off being in that higher state of reality and saying, no, I give this, like it's good. I completely trust that this situation can be reversed, right? And I can walk in that place of happiness of being with God. Not only is that better emotionally for us, but we're actually doing something for the situation, right? And we know it because our sages have told us that's exactly how we change situations. However, if the situation didn't change in the way that you wanted, now we go to that place where we say, okay, so I get that God has another accounting, which was beyond my comprehension, right? It definitely was not the accounting that I had in mind, but at least I was part of the solution. Whatever that solution is, evidently wasn't a solution in the physical world, but it definitely is some sort of solution in the spiritual world, because whatever mitzvahs I did, or whatever way I kept connecting to my creator through this pain, obviously we know created something. Do I get it? Do I get how the world works spiritually? Right? We don't get it. So did that help? Did that make any sense? That's like how I worked through the pain this week. Yes, I'm getting a few nods. Okay. Sherry, did that make any sense?
Yes, it made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because
okay.
I felt the same way yesterday.
I know it's a pretty hard blow, right?
Pretty hard blow, but I went online. I did a donation to Virgin Islands, and, I'll continue to pray for this family, and that's what I can do.
Right. And we stay connected and we say, okay, I'm with you, God. Okay. I get that you have another plan. What's next? What do you want from me? Right. I'm not going to fall into that place of despondency, because now I'm, even through this experience, now I'm even in a higher place, right? Because I've connected to God through the experience, right? Whereas if we just give up and we're just like, no, what God, what reality, what are you talking about, right? Like, it's like literally we're not growing. We're not giving the situation a chance, etc. Okay. So here in this foreword, it talks about determination and training, which I thought were really interesting words, right? We have to train ourselves and we have to be determined. And it says that when we work on our bitachon, there is that the response spiritually, which is something that we once learned when we learned a sikha from the Lubavitcher Rebbe on trust a couple of weeks ago, is that there is a spiritual response. Sometimes we don't see it, like in this situation, and sometimes we really, really see it in a manifest way, right? As an open miracle. But the bottom line is that we literally, our soul, it's like we dug to that piece of us that is intrinsically connected to God, except there's like a lot of layers of cover up, right? And we connected very, very intimately with God through that process of bitachon. In fact, the word bitachon is etymologically related to the word for plaster, to tach. Or we know also bitachon is also from betach, from security, from certainty. But in those two words, it's also the word tach, which means to plaster something, right? To cement a friendship, to cement a relationship, right? So the process of bitachon is that process where I'm literally cementing my relationship with Hashem. It's beyond just believing that there's a Hashem, believing that there's a God. It's literally cementing myself to God because I'm literally feeling him with me. I'm surrendering to his will. Okay. All right. So I want us to now do something pretty different. And I'm going to give credit to my dear husband for this one. So in the past, we've gone through the book in its entirety. But as you know, this book has a lot of lists and a lot of like logical kind of like patterns. So my dear husband has split the book into in exactly the way the author splits it, but he makes it easy for us to visualize. So I took a page from his playbook, literally speaking, and I am going to show you a little presentation before we go inside the text that kind of gives us like the structure, because sometimes we're in the text and we're like, wait, what is this? Are we in a benefit? Are we in like, why is there's a story here in the middle of benefit number 2? Like, right? Because there are like these benefits and there are these things we have to know about trust, right? And there's like a whole thing. So we're going to look at the map, and this is going to help us throughout this journey. I hope I'm going to experiment with your session. Okay. And forgive, some parts of the presentation are like, they're not missing parts, but like there was a picture here, I took it out. But I want to show you here. Okay. So when okay, let's just make it big. Okay. I'm sorry. I apologize. There's a white space. I didn't have time to fix this part. Okay. So when we look at this whole sefer, this whole book, here's the map of the book. Okay. And I thought this was amazing because now it gives us a structure. So there's an introduction. I know you guys remember that we learned an introduction first, and that's what we're going to do today. That introduction is pretty thorough but what is in that introduction specifically? It's actually the 10 benefits of trust, right? Which is super practical. When we read it, it's like, oh, wow, I get that. Yes, there are ways that we benefit from cultivating this attribute of trust, right? And there's 5 spiritual and there's 5 material. And the author describes them or categorizes them as such. And within those benefits, in one of them, he gives an example that is a pretty in-depth example to illustrate a particular point. And it gives us 10 reasons within that example of why a counterfeiter, how do you pronounce that word? Help me, somebody. Counterfeiter? An alchemist, guys. Counterfeiter. Okay. How a counterfeiter, why they would worry, how they would worry, and how we, when we have bitachon, are higher, superior than this counterfeiter, this drug lord, this alchemist, right? He calls it an alchemist because think 1,000 years in Spain, a person who could master the art of chemicals and metals and can make gold, supposedly fool's gold out of something like nickel, right? Well, that's like kind of like printing money today, right? Okay, so we think of an alchemist as, I guess, a drug lord or a counterfeiter or somebody who has can print money, right? Okay, so that in the introduction, we're getting that piece of that, the 10 ways this person ends up being a person who actually worries, even though in paper it seems like they shouldn't worry, and how we are actually better than him, right? And we'll also get the 10 benefits of trust. But sometimes people get confused because that example of the counterfeiter, of the alchemist, is embedded in one of the benefits. Okay, so that's the introduction. Then in chapter number 1, chapter number 1 is very short. It talks about the 2 words that define trust. Then chapter number 2 talks about the 7 trustworthy qualities. And, it's actually very beautiful because that's when we realize, oh my goodness, of course I should trust in God, because it's only God who can actually have those qualities, which I, as a rational human being, would expect to a person or an entity that I trust to have. And when I realized, oh no, actually, nobody can have all these qualities, but it would make sense that if I'm going to put my trust in someone, they would have to have them. It's like by default, I logically come to the beautiful conclusion of like, it's only God, right? So that's the 7 trustworthy qualities times infinity, because God has them, right? And then we go into chapter 3, which is actually a pretty extensive chapter. He gives us 5 big points about trust, the 5 big things that we need to understand about the concept of trust, 2 reasons why I can't quit my day job, right? Why we have to actually work. 5 reasons why the righteous might suffer, because he introduces here a point of like, okay, you might be wondering like, okay, not always do we see the manifest good, right? We just talked about this, right? 6 reasons why the wicked may actually prosper. And then in lesson number 4, practical application. There are 7 areas in our lives that we can actually apply this trust. And then chapter number 5 is the 7 type of attitudes that trust can cure in a work setting, in a work environment, and in relationships at work. And then these 7 mistakes around show me the money, or a type of show me the money mentality. And you'll get it when we get there. Okay. And I can't see I have to move us, but my computer froze. Oh, there. And then the last one is the troubleshooting tips. I remember we discussed this. So at the end of the book, the author, Rabbeinu Bachia, gives us like troubleshooting tips. Now that you've learned this, you might still falter in these areas. So he gives us 3 troubleshooting tips for our own lives. And then he goes through the 10 levels of trust. Okay. So now let's actually go into I'm going to do with you, and then maybe we'll look at it inside, the counterfeiter, the alchemist. But I'm having a real hard time because the computer is not letting me move you guys. Okay. So I can't see my slide. Okay. So I'm just going to do it like that. No, I don't want to do it like that because you can't see. Okay. So who's an alchemist? Who's the Colombian drug lord? No offense to my Colombian friends. Okay. Who's this counterfeiter, right? He's a person who can transform metals, right? He can have all the money in the world because he can make the money, right? So his wealth is unlimited. So we would think that this person is absolutely worry-free. But the reality is that we, not being counterfeiters, when we have trust, bitachon, in our pocket, right? When we have that secret weapon, we actually end up worrying less than this counterfeiter. So let's see, what are his worries? So the author goes through the type of things this guy worries about. Number 1, materials. We're going to see, like, does he have the right materials at the right time? Number 2, there's just a lot of stuff in his work that actually could really hurt him, like these poisonous fumes. Number 3, he has to keep secret. Like, it's not something that he could just go around and brag about, right? He might also have supply constraints. Like not always does he have the exact ingredients, meaning the exact materials, right, to do his counterfeiting art situation. He's a person who's hunted, he's not, the king is not very happy with the counter. Like, it's not like, again, he has to keep secret, and he's actually somebody that's wanted, right? His health is affected by this job. There could be a pandemic, as my husband likes to call it, meaning there could actually be a situation where this stuff that he needs is not around, or it's not even valuable, right? And we'll talk about that in a second. He's on the run. His life might not have meaning, and he's actually going to be punished because he's doing something illegal. So materials, okay? Worries about not having tools. Again, poison fumes. He worries about all the toxic chemicals that he's using. Keeping secret. It's his secret. He can't tell it to anybody. Whereas for us, for a person who has bitachon, what's the big secret? It's an amazing secret, and we don't have to keep it secret, right? What's the secret to my success? Okay, I have God on my side. I'm always reliant on God. This person doesn't have that luxury. He has to actually keep it top secret. Supply constraints. Obviously, he worries like, do I make enough money? If I make too little money right now, too little gold, is it going to last me enough time until I could do a run of this chemistry again? If I make too much, is it going to put me at risk that they're going to find me, right, and discover me? So there's that worry. How much do I make? He doesn't know, right? He worries about being hunted down by the authorities. He worries about his health risk, right? All the money in the world can't save him for the fact that he might be at risk of just nature, disease, right? Pandemic, and not being able to buy food or supply. So yes, he could have all the money in the world, but what if something happens and that money is worthless, right? There's inflation, and he can't buy anything. You can't buy bread with it, or whatever it might be. You can't get to what you need. So you have all the gold, but you actually don't have your needs met, right? And as we'll see, a person who has bitachon, one of the principles we're going to learn is that our needs are being met, okay? He's worried about getting caught, and he's on the run. And I have to move you guys from your beautiful faces because I can't see the other beautiful things that my husband put here. And he worries that at the end of his life, what was the purpose of it all, right? So he actually can't find comfort in that idea that we know that our life is not just here. There's also a beautiful life that our soul is living eternally, and everything that we've cultivated here has a consequence in that eternal world. But for this person, if all his life was about counterfeiting and making this gold, whoops, I might have neglected going after really meaningful things that really build my eternity, right? That really nurture the soul and leave an eternal legacy in the world, right? On a very spiritual level, not on a physical level, on a spiritual level, okay? And of course, it's just a matter of time before this guy is caught. Okay, so I'm going to go back to, I'm going to move your beautiful faces again. I'm going to go back to the slide. Okay. So, I want to go specific into this one. Okay, the materials. So he needs specific materials. We already know that. Otherwise, he cannot do his chemistry. Okay, those things are not accessible all the time. So obviously he worries that he doesn't have the exact amount of nickel or silver or whatever he needs exactly when he needs it. But the person who has trust, on the other hand, he knows that God gives him his sustenance, and everything he needs to survive is going to be available and guaranteed for him at any time. Like, God is the person who solidifies their trust, is like, no, my needs are being met because God doesn't abandon his creation, right? And the means for providing that sustenance are not just going to disappear. God will make it happen. And the author will give us examples of, what was his name with the ravens and all the different Nevi'im, the different prophets in very dangerous situations. And God managed to all of a sudden send the food, and not just send the food. Oh gosh, what was his name? It'll be here in a footnote, but take the food from the kitchen of the enemy, right? God has access to everything that people need, and he can provide it in any way at any time. Okay, so that's how we are different from this counterfeiter. Okay. When it comes to the danger of the poisonous fumes, we as people who trust can feel confident and secure that anything that is happening right now, any mishaps in the present, are all from God, the same God who has taken care of me from the beginning to the end, and that nothing bad is going to be happening to me, right? Because I get that God is only good. So I don't have that level of worry, right? Where, oh my gosh, something bad is going to happen to me when I actually trust. Whereas this alchemist who's just trusting his alchemy, right, will have that worry, well, this alchemy might actually kill me because there's very dangerous chemicals and fumes, right? A person whose secret weapon is God is like, no, like it's all good, right? I feel completely secure. Now, of course, we're talking, I could see everybody processing in this brain, right? Or at least I'm processing like, okay, but I'm not always at that level. Okay. But we're talking here about the person, right? How bitachon works, right? That person is completely surrendered to God Almighty and literally feels that at that very high level that everything in his life is good. Okay. And so whatever I need is going to come to me in a restful, calm, and peaceful manner. Keeping secrets. We don't have to keep a secret, right? That alchemist has to keep everything a secret. Like I said before, what's the secret? Actually, we should publicize it, right? Supply constraints. We know this one. I already talked about it, but I'll talk about the person who has bitachon, right? So the person who doesn't have bitachon, the alchemist, is always like trying to measure, well, do I prepare enough gold for a short amount of time? Do I prepare more so that later I can, in case I run out, but then if I prepare more, then I might get caught, right? I said all this before, but the person who has trust knows that God, who is in charge of everything and who is sustaining me, is going to send me exactly what I need, exactly at the time that I need, and exactly in the place that I need, right? Let's go back to that word surrender, right? Reliance. I'm relying on my creator. I'm not just believing that my creator exists. I'm literally relying on my creator that whatever I have at a given moment is exactly what I need. Even if sometimes I might not know, like, why it can't be different. It's okay. Like, I'm in that place where I'm completely attached to God, and he gives me exactly what I need when I need it. I'm not missing absolutely anything. The example that the Rabbi Novachia gives inside the text is a fetus in his mother's womb has everything it needs, right? Absolutely everything. And a chick inside the egg there's no opening, right, through which food can enter and sustain it. And that's exactly the example that he gives in the text, right? God, even though there's no opening, like there's no, like, how does God make it work that chick gets everything it needs, that fetus that gets everything it needs to develop, right? Because God Almighty is making that happen, right? It's providing each one with sustenance, even though there doesn't seem to be any natural way. There's no other. What's the way that the egg? There's what's going into the egg, right? It doesn't mean to be a natural mean, right? So we're starting to get the sense that here we're talking about looking at our reality, at our world, from a perspective that is a lot more divine, meaning a lot more above nature. If God creates nature, by the way, this is an aside, God creates nature in a certain way it operates. It also means that he gets to decide how he manages nature. He gets to decide when the order of nature doesn't have to be the order of nature, right? We can break out of that reality. In fact, we can see a fetus. There's no, like, obviously we take it for granted because we know that's nature. We know how that's worked. But if we actually looked at it objectively, we'd be like, oh, well, how does that happen? There's no way that food is coming in there. How does that egg get sustenance? There's no, a baby I feed, right? There's how does this happen? Well, obviously, again, for us, it's nature now. But if we think about it, it's like, oh, there's no natural way to do that. Natural meaning like, right? An opening to do that. right? So this already gives us that kind of like a hint to what we're striving for. We're striving to be at that level where we rely on God, who can play within nature. And we know that very well because we are in the realm of nature. And he also can play his cards, breaking nature in however way he wishes. And the more we're connected to that, the more access we have to that concept. Okay. So the same idea, God provides sustenance to, hold on, what does it say here? To the bird in the air. And I can't even see the other one. Okay. So let's continue. Hunted, of course, when I trust in God. I'm not only am I not a hunted person, a wanted person, I'm actually a respected person, right? The person, we're going to see in several examples here throughout the book, that the person who trusts in God becomes such a fine human being that actually people kind of want to be with them, right? It's like they have this like contagious, calm, just confident energy, not an arrogant energy, not an arrogant demeanor. It's actually a very humble demeanor if you really know somebody who's mastered this, but it's very soothing and it's very reliable. And so he attracts people. He's not a person who is hunted, but he's actually quite desired. And there's even, he brings proof in the text where he says he actually brings blessing. A person who really is a master of bitachon brings blessing to his surrounding, right? So it's the opposite of this counterfeiter, okay? The health concerns of a counterfeiter, of this drug lord, might actually stop him from doing what he's doing, might consume him, right? Because he might worry too much that he's not protected from illness or whatever. So he can't even enjoy his wealth. But a person who trusts in God, right, feels completely at ease. And he knows that in the event that he is affected by health concerns, it's just because for some reason, and we'll see it on the text, this is something that has to happen now, because in the grand scheme of things, of the process of my soul being in the world, it's helping me in my eternal life, right? They're able to see that perspective, and not as a victim, but as this hurts, but there's meaning and purpose to the hurt, right? Instead of in the counterfeiter, we see the health concern as something that destroys them, that stops them, that they're worried sick about, right? Because all the money in the world can't prevent them from being worried. But relying on God actually prevents a person from being consumed by worry, because they're able to frame a painful situation or a health challenge or any challenge, but here we're talking about a health one, right? Okay, because they're able to see, okay, this must be something that has a bigger impact, because I get that there's a bigger picture. There's again, I'm connected to my creator, so I'm able to see that I'm connected to something that is much bigger than what I can see and conceive, right? Then in terms of a pandemic, in terms of something happening and this guy not being able to use his money to find what he needs to survive, well, the person who trusts in God won't lack any food. God can take care of them. Oh, somebody's here. Hold on. My computer froze. And let her in. Okay, Hannah's here. Okay. All right. I'm going to continue with that. Welcome, Hannah. Okay. Purpose is life. Sorry, guys. No, I can't see you because I have to close this chat. I can't close it. I don't know why I can't close it. Stop share. Sorry, Alexia, me and my technical difficulties. Okay, fine. They were laughing at me this morning that my computer is always giving me tech problems. Okay. All right. I think we did this already, did we? Oh, we're pandemic. Okay, so the guy's on the run, right? The guy's on the run because he can't stay in one place too long, because they might actually discover him. All of a sudden, this guy's in town and he's making tons of money. All of a sudden, where's all this gold coming from, right? Where are all these dollars coming? So something's suspicious. So the guy has to be moving all the time, right? But a person who trusts in God, he's just calm and secure where he is, right? There's no spilkas to be running somewhere. He doesn't have anything to run from, right? Purpose is life. So at the end of the day, he can question himself, right? He can worry about the fact that, brother, have I actually done something with my life, right? The only thing that I actually gained with my alchemy, with my counterfeiting, printing dollars, was just monetary, you could call it financial freedom. You could call it, reliance from not poverty. But by the way, we just said, like, if he can't go out and find the food or whatever, even his wealth can't do anything, right? But that's the only thing he's achieved, right? But the Bal Bitachon, the person who masters Bitachon, who trusts, his reward is not just going to be here in the physical world, but it's actually going to take him to eternity, right? He's accumulated there's so many dividends that he's getting from being completely surrendered and reliant on God Almighty. And then obviously the punishment is pretty obvious, right? A person who has bitachon, unlike the other one, unlike the counterfeiter, right, is again beloved in the eyes of everything around him, everybody around him, and whatever. And it also pushes harm away from him. It's only a source of blessing. Okay, so now that we've done these, I'm going to start with the benefits of trust. And this is where the book starts. This, I did it now because, as I told you before, is part of the third benefit. In the part of in the book, in the introduction, where the author talks about everything I need, he segues into the example of the alchemist, and it takes a very long time. And sometimes people forget, why is this here? So now I give it to you before so that we know what this is all about. But this comes in the context of the 10 benefits of trust. So the 10 benefits are a worry-free life, because at the end of the day, either I trust in God or I trust in something else. We have to remember something. When the author begins the book by saying, on placing God and trust alone, right? And it's a very important qualifier. Bitachon means that we're trusting our creator only. The reality of life is that we all put our trust in something. There's no such thing as not trusting. Like, we trust something. The level we're trying to get at is that we actually don't fool ourselves and think that all these things we trust can actually do anything for us. And we actually get to a level where we're only trusting the creator of all these other things around me, be it my job, be it my doctors, be it, the electricity company, be it my clients, whatever those things are. Okay. My smarts, my wits, my health, all those things, right? Another benefit of trust is flattery free. I don't need to impress anybody, because only God has agency over me and can harm me, or only not God can harm me, meaning only God can cause something to be painful to me or to be harmful to me, or obviously be good to me in a revealed way, right? Only God can do it. Nobody else has real power, right? So I don't have to ingratiate myself towards anyone, thinking that I will derive benefit from that relationship, because really they have no independent power to affect me, only God, right? So that's a benefit. I don't have that attachment to people. I don't have to be flattering people, to kind of like win their favor. Everything I need, God provides me with 100% of what I need. Not necessarily everything I want in the moment that I want it, right? In the book, it's very clear that it's everything that I need. And obviously, when I get to that consciousness, I'm a lot more calmer and happy if I feel grateful and satisfied for what I have. And I'll make a parenthesis here and state that gratitude is actually one of those very, very important things to cultivate, that it's like in tandem with bitachon. The more we can be grateful beings, the easier trust comes to us, right? So it's almost like it's something that it's almost like we should learn it in tandem. How can we be better at being grateful and staying focused on the good in our lives? That automatically takes us to that higher consciousness of bitachon, right? To that place of reliance. Because if I'm only focused on what I don't have, right, then it's very hard. It means I'm not trusting, right? They definitely go hand in hand. Okay, so feeling rich. Whatever I have in my bank account at the end of the day, in terms of like a trusting person, right? they're not worried, because again, who are they relying on? Are they relying on the bank account, or are they relying on the one who sends the money to the bank account, right? On the one who can decide, who's deciding how much you're making it, how you're making it, where you're making it. So obviously they're not consumed by worried, and they feel completely rich with whatever they have at the moment, right? They also realize that whatever money they have, it's on deposit. And that means that they don't become arrogant when they have it. And that when they have it, they actually do really good, productive things with that money. And they're very humbled. They know that it's a temporary thing, and that one day God gave it to me, and one day God can take it away, right? Because it's not mine. I didn't decide. It really is a gift, right? So the money's on deposit, and I'm grateful to God for having it as long as I get to keep it and I'm doing the right thing with it. Okay. Peace of mind. I don't have that pain, that anguish of feeling like my needs are not being met, because a person who has bitachon realizes, oh, actually, this, whatever I have right now, this house, this water, this food, this, right, must be that it's what I need. Because God in the bigger picture, and when we see the 7 qualities of a trustworthy entity, we start getting this, right? We start seeing like, oh, God actually knows me better than anybody else. So he can see what I need at a certain moment. And so if I'm in that place, I'm in peace of mind, right? I don't suffer from this. It's not painful. I don't need to travel so much and overexert myself. Think about 1,000 years ago, to go travel for work was no joke, right? You left your family. It was dangerous, right? There were robbers. There were health hazards. Now we think, okay, fine. So we go on a business trip, in and out, right? But even then, like, the concept of having to travel a lot for work is actually a very tiring concept. Those of us who either travel or have husbands who travel a lot, like, we know it does take a toll. So this person actually, we'll see inside, because he doesn't have to run a million places for his livelihood, right? He can stay in a place and not expose themselves to the dangers of travel. And of course, there's a whole footnote explaining in modern day life, it tends to be that very often we do have to travel for our work. Okay. So it's not to say, okay, nobody should travel, but he's just giving an example that, again, a person with bitachon doesn't have to take risks, right? We don't have to take crazy risks that can shorten our lifespan, because we know that we're getting what we're going to get whenever we're going to get it, as long as we're doing the right thing. We don't have to go against Jewish law. We don't have to do anything crazy that would harm our body or overexert ourselves, right? We're going to get it no matter what. Danger free, very similar idea. I can actually do work that lights me up, that is relaxing, that is enjoyable, right? And that doesn't put me in a tremendous amount of stress. And there's a whole section in the book in chapter 3 about, choosing an occupation, right? And the type of occupation that we should choose if we are trusting individuals. We stay cool and collected, because I might have a lot of problems at work, right? But I realize that God can fix those problems in an instant, right? If I'm at that level of bitachon, okay? So even though I think the problem is an accounting problem and it's my accountant who can fix it this way and that way and that way, if I'm actually a trusting person, I realize actually that might be a neat idea, but that could be completely off, because God has infinite ways of solving this problem. And the way I think the problem can be solved is completely limited. He can solve it in many other different ways better than I can solve the problem. Okay. And benefit number 10, he is always happy. Why is he happy? Right? Because he knows that his creator is with him. He's with his creator. He's always doing exactly what is best for him. Whatever is coming his way, it's actually the best for him. So I'm actually going to stop sharing, and we never went inside the book, but we can do that next week. It's 8:00. I want to do something right now. Instead of going inside the text and kind of looking at the examples or exactly the outline that I just handed, we're going to do it inside the text, but I'm going to try to skip the verses, because again, I want to make sure that we all come out of this series knowing the exact pattern and logic that the author is taking us. And that's why I'm using my husband's format. And That's why this time around, I'm not going to have us say all the verses that support what the author is saying. I'm just going to stick to what the author is saying. Now, with that, are there any questions or comments or stories? And I have a cute story for you guys also. I'm going to find it here. Any questions, comments? You can unmute yourselves. Don't be shy. I've talked a lot. Somebody talk, please. No?
I have an interesting story.
Let's hear it, Sherry.
I go to the Social Security office. I'm trying to get my mom her survivor benefit level of Social Security since my father, blessed Mary, passed away.
Right.
So I go to there and you take a number. And I said, look, I'm just dropping some stuff off to somebody. No, you have to take a number. So I sit there from 10:30 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon.
Oh my God.
Thinking it's gonna close. I get seen by one guy who says he's never heard of the person, because I had put the name of the person I was supposed to meet on the documents that I had to bring in.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I've never heard of that man. He doesn't work here, blah, blah, blah. And I was like,
Oh,
okay, well, what am I now? What do I do? He said, we're going to call your name and you'll go to a different person and you'll drop off the stuff. And I said, okay. So I go and I sit back down and I wait till my name is called. And I'm getting nervous because at this point now it's like 3:30. They're closing at 4 and they haven't called my name. Just as soon as I start getting into that thing that I do, my name gets called. I go to the window.
Yeah.
And who is it? It's the guy who I talked on the phone to on Monday who said, bring me the stuff.
The guy who the other guy said he doesn't work here?
That your coworker doesn't even know you exist. He said, I'm so sorry, because he knew it was me, because I said, I was told to bring my parents' marriage certificate, and my sister found it. And he said, I know exactly who you are. We talked on Monday.
Oh my gosh. And then everything got taken care of.
Everything. I have a couple more forms, but pretty much he did all the paperwork. And
amazing.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, the guy doesn't work here. Was that a real Social Security person? I mean, you start having all these thoughts, and I thought, stop it,
right?
It's gonna be okay.
Right.
Sure
God
enough,
is with me. There's a plan
God
here.
is with me.
There's a plan
and
here.
It was him.
Yeah.
I feel like I know who you are.
I feel like these offices are always the best place to go to, that place of there's nothing but God. God, you're with me, right? Anything that has to do Social Security office, the DMV,
the DMV, remember?
The passport officers. Those are the places where, like, you feel like these people have so much power.
Yeah.
Like, so much power. I need to get that passport today, right?
I know.
If this guy doesn't authorize it, I'm doomed.
I said, you're Mr. Ikpali? He said, yes. I said, do you realize your coworker doesn't even know you exist? He said, I'm really sorry about that, but I'm right here.
I love it. Okay, so I'm going to leave you guys with a little story that I got somewhere from somebody, and I wish I knew what book it's from, but all I have is a screenshot, and it's really, really nice. It says, one evening, there was a knock at the door of a poor family. The father went to open the door, and he saw a large group of people. It's under quotes, right? These people outside of his humble home. And so he said to these beings, who are you? The father said. So one of them says, I'm Simcha, happiness. This is Bitachon, trust. Over there is health, and next to him is success. And the tough guy over there is Gevura, power, strength. We are what you requested in your prayers. And so he's like, the father and the whole family is stunned. And they tell him, we've come to visit you. You requested us in our prayers, but you may only choose one of us to stay with you. So the family members were perplexed as to what is going to be the best choice. There's all these nice things in front of them. Like, okay, but now we get to choose only one to stay with us. So what do we choose? Success, health, power, happiness. Eventually, the father went out and said, he went out of the door and he said to them, we choose Bitachon. Bitachon entered the house, but suddenly they see he was followed by all the other wishes. So he said, wait, what happened? You said we can choose only one of you. That's right, said happiness. But wherever Bitachon goes, we all follow. Isn't that great? Right? So really what we're learning here is something so, so fundamental. And it is true. When we can be when we have bitachon, the happiness comes with it, the health, the strength, the wealth, all those things follow, right? This is really, it's a superpower. Okay, so it's a superpower. So let's do it. Let's keep nourishing and developing that superpower. I will see you here, God willing, next week. Okay, and if you need me in the meantime, I think you know where to find me. Text me or email me or whatever you need. Okay. Bye, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sally. Incredible.